Jai Baba. This is the 8th of our 16 sessions in the series Stay with God, Francis Brabazon's epic masterpiece as a proclamation of Meherabad's Avatarhood and foundation laying for the New World civilization. Last week, we began looking at Book 2 in Stay with God. Stay with God has 5 books, and the second book is entitled The Love Song of John Carey. So we went over that. For this session, session 8, I'm thinking of taking the occasion, it's a bit of a digression, I guess you could say, and just looking at the love song genre and looking at some other love songs to give some context for seeing what Francis has done with the genre in Stay with God. As I said last time, by making the second book a love song, Francis has shown Baba, the avatar, from a new perspective, that is, as the beloved. In Book 1, it was the avatar descending as an event in human history and living a life as a man among men. And in later books, Francis is going to be doing other things. But now we're getting the I-you dynamic, where I, the lover, am speaking about my longing for you, the divine beloved. This, of course, roots itself in one of the most popular of all poetic lyric forms, which is the love song. So I'm going to look at several love songs from literature and also from Francis himself in this as a way of providing some perspective on what Francis has done. Now, in the history of religion, it seems to me that love as a theme, as an explicit theme, emerged into the foreground of religious sensibility fairly recently. And by recently, I mean over the last 2,000 years. In the older, scriptural literature, like in the Vedas, say, or in the Upanishads, or in the Old Testament, or in China, in the intellects of Confucius or the Tao Te Ching, or a lot of this older work, the love is not the topic that people are talking about very much. Now, I don't mean to say that love wasn't there. Baba would say that love has always been at the center of the path to God, and in real terms, that could be true. For example, in the story of Ram in the Ramayana, Ram behaves in a very dharmic, noble way, and you could say that to behave in that way is to give expression to love in human relations. So I'm not denying any of that. But love was not really talked about very much. It seems to me that the advent of Jesus may have played a role in bringing the subject of love into greater centrality. By the way, Buddha did not really talk about love either. Now, you might say his life was one of compassion. I'm not saying love wasn't there, but his theme was suffering and desire and the annihilation of the false self. In Vedanta, it's the relation between the Atman and the Brahman and how actually they're one, and the unity of God. Those are the sorts of themes that in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible, there are many, many kinds of subjects. But there has been a big movement in the religions of the world to giving love for God a central place. In Islam, that happened too. There isn't all that much talk about love as such in the Quran, but within a century or two, with great saints like Rabia, and then later on you see it with the great poet Rumi and Hafiz. Love becomes a very central topic. Even in Buddhism, that happened. In China and Japan, with what's called Pure Land Buddhism, it became very devotional. Within the Indian subcontinent and Hinduism, love emerged into explicit prominence with the arising of what's called the Bhakti movement. And that actually started in South India with the devotionalism towards Lord Shiva, and then Vishnu with the Alvars, as they're called. And it became very popular. Devotional religion, that is, a religion based on love and surrenderance to God, where that assumes a primacy. It's more important for you just to love God and throw yourself on the mercy of God, whether you're virtuous or not. Just surrender yourself to, even if you're a wretched person, you throw yourself on God's mercy and God lifts you up anyway. That kind of theme acquired great popularity. And of course, it spread to North India with great perfect masters like Chaitanya, or it was in Bengal, or in Maharashtra, Tukaram, people like that. In Hinduism, in the Hindu world, the love theme really came into ascendancy with the arising of the Bhakti movement, as it's called. Bhakti means devotion, or in its higher aspect, it becomes love. The Bhakti movement really arose in South India with devotion to Shiva, and then separately from that, Vishnu, with people like the Alvars writing great poetry of love for Vishnu, which became associated with Vishnu's incarnation as the Avatar. That became a part of Bhakti devotionalism and has been very central to it, actually. A lot of the Bhakti movement is addressed to Krishna or Ram, conceived as incarnations of God. And over the last 1,500 years, this has become immensely popular. It's the dominant form of religious practice right now, I would say, with bhajans and other forms of song that are essentially within the bhakti mode, where the lover expresses love and praise and adoration for God, particularly in human form, but it can also be just for God conceived as Pandurang or Vitoba or whoever, whatever deity one conceives. Although it began in South India, the Bhakti movement very much spread to North India with great figures like Chaitanya in Bengal, probably a perfect master. And here in Maharashtra, there are many of them, like Tukaram is an outstanding instance of that. So this is the most popular form of religious expression in India, and I would say around the world. So the expression of love for God in love poetry, love form song, has repeatedly had a relationship to love songs between humans. Like a favorite, of course, is a man singing a love song for a woman, or a woman singing a love song for a man. So there's been a lot of crossover. Often the mystical poetry will draw on popular traditions like this. In Indian aesthetics, there's a fundamental mode. There are 8 classical moods in Indian aesthetics, and one of them is they use the term erotic. But I wouldn't associate that with kind of modern popular culture and its sexualization. It's much more higher than that on the whole. But there will be adorative, even erotic poetry of love for Krishna, as a matter of fact, for Lord Krishna. And sometimes you'll have a woman's voice singing to a man, sometimes a man singing to a female beloved. In Sufi poetry, this is very common, where the poet is singing to a beautiful, essentially feminine beloved who hides her beauty behind a veil. Of course, in Islamic society, women are veiled, and so this becomes a symbol for God hiding himself behind his creation and my longing for him to lift his veil. So as I say, there's a great deal of crossover. This is a subject that would certainly be worth studying, and I don't doubt that many people have. In my own observation, one thing I've noticed is that you'll have periods of time in which there doesn't seem to be a great deal of love poetry, and then all of a sudden you'll have examples of it in full bloom, which makes me think that it was probably there all along, but didn't find its way into some of the canonical literature. A good example of that is in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, which is nothing like that. But then all of a sudden you have the Song of Solomon, which is very much in women's voices singing their adoration for a beloved, like that. In European literature, most of the literature was heroic and martial, talking about war and battle. And then in the 12th century, all of a sudden you have an outburst of courtly love poetry with knights, going on great adventures for the sake of ladies whom they love. And the Renaissance has happened also. So Francis is working within this kind of a history, constructing a form of love poetry for Meher Baba. And he was working with, of course, a tradition, but part of what... of course, it's a man singing a love song for a man, so I don't think the erotic element is there at all. I mean, nowadays we're so sex-obsessed that everybody thinks that everything is about sex, but I don't think there's any of that. We had it in Old English literature with expressions of loyalty and devotion and love for a lord, for a master, like that. And that's what I think Francis is doing. So let's just take a look at some love poems from English literature mostly, just to get a taste of what that's like. That's what most of this session will be. In this particular sonnet of Shakespeare's, I wanted to illustrate the difference between a love song and a poem on the subject of love. Now, there is a difference. In a love song, typically I, the lover, am singing to you, my beloved, or there can be other forms of it where you are absent and removed, but I'm talking about the agony of love that I'm experiencing. You've rejected me, or things like that. That's another very popular kind of love song. But this particular sonnet of Shakespeare's is not a love song properly, but it's a poem about love. So I'm just going to read it's a very famous sonnet, and Shakespeare is, of course, such a poetic genius that I'd like to just read a few lines. So he writes, "Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove." Okay, he's saying love isn't love if it changes when the object of love changes. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is a star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. That is, love is fixed. Even when tempests come, love itself is not altered. It's a star to every wandering ship at sea. And he says, whose worth's unknown, although its height be taken. Back in Shakespeare's time, ships would sail across the Atlantic, and they would find their location by the North Star, and thus they could identify where they are, even though they were not measuring the worth of the star. They were just finding their own location on basis of the star. Okay, I'm going very quickly, and I won't read any more of this, but the point I want to be making here is it's a very beautiful, poetically brilliant meditation on love, but it's not the voice of life speaking, right? It's talking about love as a subject. Here's it's a popular song, which many people would know, by Paul McCartney, one of the Beatles. It's a very famous love song. I'll just look at a little bit of it to illustrate some of the conventions in love poetry. This is Yesterday, beautiful melody, good lyrics. Yesterday, all my troubles seemed so far away. Now it looks as though they're here to stay. Oh, I believe in yesterday. Suddenly, I'm not half the man I used to be. There's a shadow hanging over me. Oh, yesterday came suddenly. And now we get suddenly a narrative. This is another characteristic of love songs where sometimes there's an implied narrative in it. Why she had to go, I don't know. She wouldn't say. I said something wrong. Now I long for yesterday. Okay, a lot of love songs are like this. There's a storyline in the background. Now, we never know what he said or who she is or why she left or anything like that. But you don't really need to. It's like, I offended her, she left me, and now I'm heartbroken. Okay, so a lot of love songs are like this. They'll have an assumed narrative in the background. I'm just taking a glimpse at some of these. I wouldn't call these works of poetic genius, but they're illustrative of the love song genre. Here's a song that Baba liked. There's a Heartache Following Me, sung by Jim Reeves. Sometimes they ask me if I'm really happy now. I say, sure, I never loved her anyhow. But inside I long for you and the way it used to be. I look around, and there's a heartache following me. I think that's probably the line that Baba liked. This brings out another common theme in love songs. That is, to the outer world, I show a happy face, and I pretend that I'm not really affected, but in my heart of hearts, I'm going through the agony of longing for love. And as I mentioned last time, this is a convention of love poetry. When you see other people in the world, and someone says, how are you doing, Ward? I say, well, actually, I'm going through agonies in this way and that way. Well, I'll drive other people away. They might put up with it in an unusual case, but usually you have to show a happy face and pretend, oh, I'm doing fine, I'm doing just great, even though, in fact, I'm not. So notice how the love song genre, one of its conventions is that you express things in a love song that you would not usually express in the world. You're showing your hidden self. So you'll have famous singers with millions and millions of dollars who stand up and talk as though they're going through agonies of love, something they would never say in person. So the love song by convention allows you I'm representing myself as a loser, right? I have a beloved who I adore, and she has rejected me. Well, I'm the loser, right? You don't usually say I'm a loser. You show yourself as a winner in the world. But the love song allows you to do this, which is something that we as human beings always do experience, actually. So the next stanza, again, it's this thing of what I say versus what I feel. I always say that I'm really glad she's gone. I even act like I never cared at all, right? The pretense is, I didn't care for her. She's just a worthless nothing. But your memory lingers on, and I'm never really free. I look around, and there's a heartache following me. That really is a good poetic line. Now the third stanza, I pawned my ring and everything that tied me to the past. Apparently it's his wife, since he had a wedding ring. So he pawns, I got rid of my wedding ring. I say I never loved her and never meant for it to last. But I know it's just a game, and the loser's always me. Here he says it, I'm the loser. I look around and there's a heartache following me. It's a very good expression of very characteristic love song themes that you'll find in a lot of them. Let's take a look at Begin the Begin, which of course Baba liked a great deal. This is by Cole Porter. And I would say that this is a highly accomplished piece of poetry. It has a superb melody, but it's really a fine piece of poetry as well. Now, this song is essentially a reminiscence. It's not IU. I'm not, although there is IU. He's talking, I'm with you once more under the stars. But it's remembering a love from the past. It's remembering a romance from the past. And the aching of it comes up. And at the end, it affirms the kind of eternity of love. I think Cole Porter wasn't intending to talk about love for God. He's talking about a typical human romance. But it's so beautiful and so accomplished that whether he was conscious of it or not, I think the song rises above that level to be about immortal love. I'd like to point out some of the features of the poetic form. I take great interest in this. So in another series, we could go into things like this more. But notice the form is the rhyme scheme, A, B, B, A, B, B, A. When they begin the begin, it brings back a sound of music so tender. It brings back a night of tropical splendor. It brings back a memory evergreen, right? You get that? Begin green, that's the A rhyme. A, B, B, A, tender and splendor. I'm with you once more under the stars, and down by the shore an orchestra's playing, and even the palms seem to be swaying when they begin the begin. So what this song is doing, when the begin is Cole Porter was part of a wealthy aristocratic class in America and England at that time. It would spend their time on cruise ships going all around the world and enjoying tropical scenes. In those days, only the rich could do that. So it's that kind of a scene. And you're stopped on your cruise ship at some beautiful tropical island, and there's an orchestra, and they're playing dance songs, right? So the begin is a dance song. So when they begin it, and then that is when they begin it now, he's saying, at the present time when I hear people playing, it brings back memories from the past. Music so tender, a night of tropical splendor. You see, when you're from England or America in those days, the tropics is warm. They weren't, it's colder up there. Beautiful stars. You can be out at night. The ocean is right there. It brings back a memory evergreen. Nice phrase, right? The memory, it's from a romance I had a long time ago, but it still is green. It's alive within me. It hasn't died yet, okay? And now he recalls the scene directly. I'm with you once more under the stars, or dancing under the stars in this tropical paradise, right? And down by the shore an orchestra's playing. So now you've got that explicit. And even the palms seem to be swaying. When you're from somewhere like New York or London, you don't see palm trees. Of course, here in India, they're all over the place, but it's kind of an exotic scene where the palms are swaying along with the music when they begin the begin. But now he starts to introduce the regret, the theme of loss and regret. Now that theme comes in after this idyllic scene. To live it again is past all endeavor. Now, here he has a different rhyme scheme. It's A-B-A-B. Endeavor, except when that tune clutches my heart. And there we are, swearing to love forever and promising never, never to part, right? Endeavor forever, heart and part. To live it again is past all endeavor. I think what this line means is I was in love. We learn, I was in love. We had this beautiful love, and it ended so painfully. I could never go through that again. It was too hard. It was too agonizing. That's an important theme of this, that love is agonizing, and I just want to let it die. It would be past all possibility, past all effort to go back into love like that, except when they begin the begin, right? When they remember that tune clutches, when they play that tune and it clutches my heart. And when the moment that happens, remember the memory evergreen he talked about earlier? And there we are, swearing to love forever and promising never, never to part. This is the, with real lovers, I love you, I adore you, we'll be with each other forever, we'll never part. This is kind of the archetypal sentiment that lovers express. The most basic thing they say, I adore you and this will last forever, right? So Cole Porter has put these kind of basic, simple lines right into his song in a very powerful way, When that tune clutches my heart, it's all back again, and I can remember all of it. It's all so clear before me. Okay, now we get the loss. What moments divine, what raptures serene, okay, that's promising, never, never to part, till clouds came along to disperse the joys we had tasted. We never learn what it is, but in other words, we had under the stars, but then clouds came. It's a weather metaphor, and the whole thing was destroyed. So Porter never tells us exactly what happened, but you don't need to know. Something happened. The whole thing got destroyed. We as human beings know what this is like. And now, when I hear people curse the chance that was wasted, I know but too well what they mean. Oh, what a thing I lost. What a fool I was for having lost that. Remember that thing yesterday that we looked at earlier? Why she had to go, I don't know. She wouldn't say. I said something wrong, and now I long for yesterday. It's the same theme, regret. So these love songs very often have a theme of both longing and agony for the lost beloved and regret for having lost an opportunity. So these are very simple themes that all of us are acquainted with, right? And so now the last two stanzas, the first is to live it again is past all endeavor. No, I can't do this love thing again. It's too much full of suffering. That's this stanza. So don't let them begin the begin, right? The first line was when they begin the begin, right? No. Hey, orchestra, stop. Don't play that anymore. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to remember it. I don't want to know about it. Don't let the love that was once a fire remain an ember, right? It was a flaming fire. He's actually not saying put it out, because he knows that can never happen. But let it die down where it's just what an ember is, the ember of a fire. Let it just go back to where it's just quiescent again. Let it sleep like the dead desire. I only remember, now get this, when they begin the begin. I only remember it when they begin the begin. Let it sleep like a dead desire, but it isn't really dead now, is it? Because when they begin the begin, it comes back to life again. So let that love all go down in quiet so that it doesn't bother me most of the time, except rare moments like this. But then the last stanza goes the opposite. Oh yes, let them begin the begin. He was negative in the previous stanza, and now he's affirming the eternity of this love is what it really is. Till the stars that were there before return above you. That is, remember, I'm with you once more under the stars. He said that earlier. Play it again until the stars come out again and those clouds are gone. And you whisper to me once more, Darling, I love you. You know, these are the simplest ideas in the whole world. You know, we're lovers. Oh, I love you so much. Well, we as human beings actually like to say this. Women certainly like to hear it, that's for sure. So the stars, darling, so he's been able to put in the simplest, most basic expressions of love in a very powerful way. And now look at this line, and we'll suddenly know what heaven we're in. I think Cole Porter got a real divine inspiration in this line beyond his usual understanding. He's not, and we'll suddenly go back into heaven again. No, he doesn't say that. He's saying, we'll suddenly know what heaven we're already in. This world is really a heaven of love. That's actually what it means. Now, that's a divine idea, actually. That's an idea that goes beyond typical romance. When they begin, they begin. When they begin, they begin. So this is one of the cases where someone wrote a love song and touched into such a depth of love that it reached the divine love. And it actually caught the ear of the Avatar of the Age himself, so that he had it played when he dropped the body. This is a very, very fine poem. Okay, I'd like to, just for the fun of it, take a look at a poem a love song by Shakespeare. Shakespeare was not spiritually interested in spiritual topics, but he could express every human feeling. So this is another kind of a love song. It's a seduction love song, where a man is trying to seduce a woman. But again, in our modern age, seduction begins, and then 2 minutes later they're in bed having a very kind of sex. It's not as crude as that. In this case, he's trying to get a woman to kiss him, right? And there are lots of songs like this, and it's a masterpiece. So, "O Mistress," I'll just read it. This is from a play called Twelfth Night. "O Mistress mine, where are you roaming? Oh, stay and hear, your true love's coming, that can sing both high and low. Trip no more, my further, pretty sweeting. Journeys end in lovers' meeting. Every wise man's son doth know." Okay, let's just look at that. Shakespeare is so accomplished. It is so good. So it's, "O mistress mine, where are you roaming?" Poetically, there's a contrast between you roaming. What does roaming mean? It means you're somewhere other than with me. That's all it means. Anywhere that you are that's not with me is roaming. Why are you roaming away? Stay and stop roaming. Stay and hear. Your true love's coming. Who's coming? He probably would have said. Who is your true love? Me. I'm your true love. That can sing both high and low. He's using a vocal. I've got a great range, the heights and the depths. I got it all. Babe, I got it all. It's boasting, but lovers will sort of say this. So I'm coming and I have everything you could want. Okay, so the second half of that first stanza, he says, "Trip no further, pretty sweeting." Again, Shakespeare's poetic mastery is evident here. Trip relates to where are you roaming, right? So don't go roaming, don't go trip, don't go on further trips. And all that roaming and tripping means is anywhere you go that it's away from me is roaming or tripping. You should be with me, right? But also the word trip in English means, you trip and fall. So if you go roaming, you're going to trip and fall. You're going to put yourself in for misfortune. Don't do that. Trip pretty sweeting. Sweeting is like sweetheart. Come on, sweetheart. To trip no further. Now this great line, "Journeys end in lovers' meeting." Isn't that the essence of so many stories? There are great journeys, and at the end, the lovers meet. In one line, he has expressed the theme of so many love stories. Only a great poet can put it. So, journeys end in lovers meeting, sweeting, meeting rhyme. But now look at this last line. Classic Shakespeare. Every wise man's son doth know. Okay, who is the wise man's son? Well, it's probably me. But why does he say the wise man's son? All of it, see, Shakespeare is actually undercutting it. He's actually saying, well, what does Dad think about this? I'm going around trying to seduce, I'm getting myself into trouble with women. So it sort of brings in that perspective. He doesn't say every wise man doth know. He says every wise man's son doth know. And thus he suddenly brings in a perspective that that undercuts this, right? That sort of says, well, this kind of love, there's a kind of a sadness in this, actually. So absolute classic Shakespeare. Just to touch, every wise man's son doth know. It's actually rather funny, that he would put that in. Okay, the second stanza. I think this poem is an absolute masterpiece in its kind. For what it is, it's unsurpassable. What is love? Okay, he's asking the most basic question. But notice he doesn't say what love is. He says when love is, and when it is not. It is not hereafter. That is, love does not belong to the future. You see how this is part of, he's trying to get this girl to kiss him. In other words, don't put it off. Don't delay. It's not in the future. Now look at this line, masterful line. Present mirth hath present laughter. Mirth is when you experience something as humorous, right? And when you experience it, it is at that moment that you laugh. Now, isn't that true? When do you laugh? A spontaneous laugh. You laugh when you are experiencing the humorousness of it at that very moment. Mirth and laughter happen at the same moment, right? I don't know, did you ever think about that? It's actually a basic human truth. And he's comparing this to love. That is to say, when you feel mirth, you laugh. Similarly, when you feel love, you should give expression to your love, because you should kiss me. That's what he's leading to. Present mirth hath present laughter. And now he gives the other side of it. What's to come is still unsure. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. We may not have the opportunity in the future. In delay, there lies no plenty. No plenty, no fulfillment, no happiness. Delaying is not going to get you anything. And now we come to the punchline of the entire poem. Then come and kiss me, sweet and 20. You see, it's a seduction song. Come, this kiss. That's what the whole poem is about. But now look at the last line. The last line is actually very sad. Youth's stuff will not endure. Okay, it's like this doesn't last long. This kind of experience, it undercuts the whole love song. It sort of shows it as this kind of thing passes quickly. This kind of thing is quickly gone. That's where you see Shakespeare's mastery, because he gives an exquisite love song, but he gives you a glimpse. Every wise man's, what does Dad think about this? Youth's stuff will not endure. This kind of love doesn't last. So all of a sudden you get a completely different vision of the whole thing. Masterful, complete. It's a perfect love song, but you see it gives certain perspectives on it that are deeper than that. How much time have I taken? I'm trying to see.
It's more than 45 minutes.
Okay. Let me just think whether I should do another Shakespeare one or not. Is it?
You should do. We can cut it into 2 parts. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Here's another Shakespeare love song, the greatest poet in English, far and away, and that's with some other great poets in the picture. This is from the same play called Twelfth Night, and this is, I don't know how to say it. It's quite funny in its own way. This is sung by a certain character. He's a fool, but he's not really a fool. He plays the role of fool in court. He's actually very, very astute and very intelligent and not a fool at all. But he's singing the song to a duke who is not just in love with a countess, but he's in love with the idea of love. He really is into being a lover, right? So this Festi, is his name, is serving him just what he likes. But in fact, the whole thing is overblown to just the perfect degree. But it is expressing a real feeling that lovers have. That is, I've been rejected and I'm just going to go kill myself because nobody cares about me. I'm just going to go die out in a field somewhere, and that's just how you sort of feeling sorry for yourself. But people feel this way, right? Especially when you're 16. People really do have these feelings. So he expresses it exquisitely, just beautifully. Okay, the first stanza. So this is the lover talking about a cruel beloved who has rejected him. Let me expand this so it's a little easier to see. Come away, death, and in sad cypress let me be laid. Fly away, breath. I am slain by a cruel fair maid. My shroud of white, stuck all with you, oh, prepare it. My part of death, no one so true did share it. Okay, so the opening lines. Come away, death. He's talking to death. Death, let's go. We're buds now because I'm going to die. So come away with me, right? And in sad cypress. What is sad cypress? It's a coffin made of cypress wood. Put me in my coffin, death, right? It's really quite funny, but it really expresses the feelings too. Now, fly away, breath. In other words, I'm breathing. Okay, breath be gone because I'm dying. I'm not going to breathe anymore. I'm going to be in my coffin and won't breathe. And now we learn the reason. I am slain by a fair, cruel maid. Well, she's so beautiful. And why is she cruel? Because she's rejected me, right? I've been rejected by her, so I'm just going to go die. My shroud of white, stuck all with you. This is part of the funeral scenery. Cover me with a shroud. Oh, prepare it. I mean, apparently I can just give orders like this and somebody's going to go do all of this. So there's somebody who's going to run around and get my coffin ready and get my shroud. My part of death, no one so true did share it. Okay, now this is, if you've read Romeo and Juliet, you would see what that is. If I had a true lover, I would die and she would die too, because as a true lover, she would also die. But she's a cruel fair maid, so she doesn't give a damn. So nobody else, I'm going to die, but she isn't, because I don't have a true lover like me. Okay. You see the sort of self-pity here, although it's charming and it's expressing feelings that people really have. Okay, not a flower sweet on my black coffin let there be strown. Not a friend greet my pure corpse where my bones shall be thrown. 1,000 sighs to save, lay me, oh, where, sad true lover, never find my grave to weep there. In other words, he's saying, bury me so that nobody knows about it. Of course, he's singing this big song so that everybody can hear it. But not a flower street on my black coffin. Don't put any flowers on my coffin. I just nobody come to my funeral. Nobody care about it. Not a friend greet my poor corpse where my bones shall be thrown. Nobody come to my funeral when I get buried. No, I just want to be forgotten about completely, right? And now, 1,000 sighs to save, lay me, oh, where, sad true lover, never find my grave to weep there. Now, this is a standard idea that this Shakespeare is referencing. That is, a lover dies, and then later, someone else who is also in love comes to the grave of that person who died for love, and oh, he died for love. What a piteous state he is in, because the person saying it is in the same state, right? This is a sort of a standard idea. So he's saying, so that lovers in the future don't have to go through the agony of finding my grave and weeping over the terrible fate I've gone through, bury me in some place where no one knows where I am, right? It's really quite funny, actually. It's overblown when you see it within the context of the play. It's overblown to the perfect degree, because the Duke he's singing it to is going to take this straight, but it's exaggerated just to the right amount. So, but you see how this is actually expressing basic human feelings. You know, people feel this way. Oh, I'm just so heartbroken. Just throw me off in a field so that nobody knows where I am, because, you know, that's how, particularly when you're, 16, 17, 18 years old, people have these feelings all the time. Again, Shakespeare expressing this idea to perfection. Now I'd like to turn to one of Francis's love songs from the East-West Gathering. And this is a real masterpiece. This is a song to Baba. The dawnlight breaks. Baba particularly liked this. And this is, again, we were talking about, a man, about a woman who's broken his heart, and again, human romance was the beginning place. Now, Francis is talking about to Baba as God and as the divine beloved. And this is just an exquisite poem. Francis wrote it to the tune of a song called "Oh Danny Boy," a well-known popular song. So I'll do it one stanza at a time. Oops, I can't expand it or I'll lose some parts of it. But the dawnlight breaks against my grief of stubborn days. The world awakes, each thing to sing your praise. And I alone stir not as though it still were night, as a dull stone, though sun shines, gives no light. Meher, Meher, all things reflect your face so fair. In each that sings, you of yourself are aware. But though I see your winning beauty everywhere, unless you give me love, what is all this to me? Some observations about the form. Days, praise, night, light. That's AABB. And then fair, aware, everywhere. And then all this to me doesn't rhyme with anything. Most of the lines are 6 beats. If in another seminar, we could talk about poetic form, which is of great interest to me. But the dawnlight breaks against my grief of stubborn days. 6 beats, right? The world awakes each thing to sing your praise. That's 5 beats. And I alone stir not as though it still were night. 6 beats. As a dull stone, though sun shines, gives no light. 5. So 6, 5, 6, 5. That's the form of the first half. Now, this is classic praise and complaint. It's praising the beloved as the summation of everything wonderful and beautiful, and it's complaining that you're giving love to the entire world, but you haven't given any of your love to me. Give me some love. But he's showing how your love is manifesting everywhere, all over the whole world, and I alone am left out. So the dawnlight breaks. So it's dawn imagery, but notice how dawnlight breaks. It's like a wave, right? A wave breaking. Dawn is like a wave breaking across the world against my grief of stubborn days. It's not breaking across the world. This is a metaphor. It is breaking across the world, but it's against my stubborn grief. It's breaking against my grief, and my stubbornness causes me to continue feeling grief, even though your dawn is breaking. See, that's going to be the basic theme. Your greatness of love manifestation has not annihilated my grief. Okay, the dawnlight breaks, the world awakes. You notice the rhyme, dawnlight breaks, the world awakes, each thing to sing your praise. As dawn arises, right, all the birds start singing, people wake up, everybody starts expressing themselves. That's what's happening all around the world, and now we get the complaint. And I alone stir not, as though it still were night. Everyone else has arisen to the dawnlight, but I don't. I don't stir. As a dull stone, though sun shines, gives no light. So we're going to have this dull stone at this position in every verse. It's like, I'm like a rock. The sun shines, but I'm just like a rock. I don't even reflect it. It's reflecting in everybody else. I'm sure that many of you will have felt this, where you, Baba, the love is there and everywhere, but I'm just not feeling it. I'm not responsive. I'm just dead inside. You're giving it to everyone else, but not to me. Okay, and now we have Meher, all things reflect your face so fair, right? The dawnlight is all things awake and sing your praise. In each that sings, you of yourself are aware. And now Francis is expressing the divinity. This is not a human beloved. In everyone that sings, you, Baba, are conscious of yourself there. You're actually everything in everyone. He's expressing the universe, that Baba is the self of every self. But though I see your winning beauty everywhere, and that line repeats, unless you give me love, what is all this to me? This is great complaint, the lover's complaint. Now the second verse, so this basic pattern repeats in all three verses. The dawnlight sings up from the wells of lovers' eyes. Notice how it begins with dawnlight. But what does it mean, the wells of lovers' eyes? You've seen eyes, when people are beginning to start weeping, it's like there are wells there. It's a depth. So it's breaking across the horizon, but now it's singing up from within the lovers themselves. It's not just outward, it's inward. From the wells, because they're weeping, right? The lovers are weeping and the light is singing from there. And gladness springs in wild new melodies. God springs, jumps off, and also a spring is like a spring of water, right? Because the wells of the lovers who are weeping for love is like a spring pouring down their cheeks in wild new melodies. So now he's having sound imagery, a melody imagery. And I alone remain unmoved by all around. Everyone else is responding, and I'm not touched by it. As a dull stone, though struck, gives out no sound. This verse is focused on sound imagery. You can hit a rock and it's just a dull thing, right? So now the chorus section, the second half of the second stanza, Meher, all forms your lovely image bear, and all voices your perfect truth declare. So notice that it's continuing the rhyme from the first verse, which went, as you can see there in the poem, Meher, all things reflect your face so fair. In each that sings, you of yourself are aware, right? You hear that? Fair, aware, bear, declare. So he's reverting to that same rhyme scheme. And also in this second verse, the ideas are related. The first time, Meher, all things reflect your face so fair, right? In everything, your face is being reflected. And in the second verse, Meher, all forms your lovely image bear. That is, all forms bear your lovely image. It's the same idea, right? Your image, your face is in everything. And the second line here, and all voices your perfect truth declare. That is, all voices declare your perfect truth. That is, all voices are testimonial to the reality of you, Meher. The supreme reality is God. So this is a variation. It's a slightly different idea from the first verse. In each that sings, you of yourself are aware. So you notice the pattern. The first of these lines is a visual image. Your image is reflected in everything. And the second line is voice and sound. This happened in the first two verses. And then the third and fourth lines are exact repetitions. But though I see your winning beauty everywhere, unless you give me love, what is all this to me? You see, complaint. You see the praise and complaint. It's praising your beauty and saying that everything is responding to your beauty except me. You're leaving me out. Praise and complaint. So that's the second verse. And now here's the third verse. We see the repetition of the same patterns. But let me just say the first verse was the dawnlight breaks. You have the dawnlight breaking against a wall, which is my grief. The second is the dawnlight sings up from the wells. In other words, the dawnlight, your love emanating is responded to and having its emanations from the eyes of all lovers everywhere, except for me, of course, because I'm just a dull stone. But now we have the dawnlight blooms. It doesn't just rise up from the eyes of lovers, but it takes root and blooms there. So you see there's a certain progression in the imagery. Now, this is metaphor. Light does not typically bloom, right? Light shines. So this is comparing light to a flower now. The dawnlight blooms within each heart, right? And now he's going to use, and nightingales. Well, what do nightingales have to do with blooming? Well, this is the Sufi figure of the nightingale singing to the rose. So it implies that the dawnlight is giving birth to roses, which is the image of the beloved, actually, and the nightingale of the lover sings to it. And nightingales, their songs resume. Why do they resume? Because it's been nighttime and everything's been asleep. But with the dawnlight breaking, the nightingales wake up and start singing to the rose again. The nightingale is the lover, and the rose, that is the bloom, is the beloved. And the blooming in each heart means the beloved outside is manifesting and blooming within also. See, beautiful poetic construction here. And nightingales, their songs resume. The normal word order would be, nightingales resume their song. By the way, notice the internal rhyming. The dawnlight blooms and their songs resume, which tell love's sweet, sad tales, right? The sweet, sad tales of love. Okay, so now this is again looking out at, this is praise, showing how your beauty is manifesting and evoking response everywhere, but I'm not responding. I alone, hidden in darkest night remain. I alone remain hidden in darkest night. The blight is blooming everywhere, but it's not reaching me. And again, the fourth line of each verse always compares me to a stone. As the dull stone, though broken, knows no pain. You can break a stone, but it doesn't feel any pain because it's just a stone. In other words, I'm not feeling any, you're not feeling your love, and I don't even feel the pain of your love. Of course, the whole the song is testifying to the opposite to this. And now we have the last refrain. Meher, meher, all things reflect your beauty rare. Again, this is the same idea as we've had before. First was all things reflect your face so fair, and all things reflect your beauty rare. So this is a continuing theme. Everything in the world is showing your face. And in every sweet song, you alone are there. The second line of this chorus part, once again, goes from your image to songs and the voices and declaring you. In every sweet song, you alone are present. So your image is in every form, and every song conveys you, sings about you. But though I see your winning beauty everywhere, unless you give me love, what is all this to me? So this is a real masterpiece of a love song by Francis Brabazon in the East-West Gathering, written 1962-63, a few years after Stay with God. I heard that Francis told someone that this was Baba's favorite lyric in that poem, The East-West Gathering. And by the way, The East-West Gathering, that book, has wonderful songs like this and a number of exquisite love songs. So that's, there are many other love songs we could cover. I'm just going to mention two of them. One is I'm not covering them because they're not in English, but St. John of the Cross wrote some marvelous, very touching love songs to God. St. John of the Cross was one of the great Christian saints. One of them is The Dark Night of the Soul, really beautiful. And another one that I could cover in another session would be a ghazal by the Urdu poet Simab, which when it was being sung out to Baba at a darshan, Baba stopped at a certain point and said, I have just given God realization to Simab. So that one would be well worth studying too on another occasion. So this session, or this half of session 8, I guess the session 8 has been just to look at some exemplars of the love song genre as a context for Francis's The Love Song of John Carey. Of course, you can see that the love song of John Carey is much longer. Of course, there are other great long love songs, not so much, well, I guess in the West too, but Gita Govinda within Hindi literature is a great love song to Krishna, and there are others like this. But I think Francis has really broken the new ground and opened the door within English poetry, showing what an extended, highly developed love song can be. Most love songs in the West for the last 300, 400, 500 years have been secular, man to a woman, or perhaps woman to a man, sort of romantic. But it's a love song to God, but what Francis has added to that is love song to God incarnate as a master, as a man. In the West, we really haven't had much of that at all. In Sufi literature, you do have it. But the incarnate avatar actually is a human being. Even in Sufi poetry, you don't get that quite so much. And Francis has woven into it some of these great metaphysical themes, as I mentioned earlier, like nothing and everything, a big theme which Baba gave him for Stay with God. And, as I said earlier, how can you make the nothing and the everything a fit theme for love poetry? Well, he has done it. He said, you're everything and I'm nothing, but I'm not even nothing. But I can't be something and I can't be nothing. So he's made this the basis for his complaint. He's brilliantly used this metaphysical theme in a way that I think people in the love experience can understand. And in the very final stanza, as we went over in the last session, Francis has poetically explained what the purpose of this love experience is. Praise and complaint is to bring about the annihilation of the false self so that one can have the I am God experience. Okay, so this is the end of the love song of John Carey. In next two sessions, we're going to be going on to Book 3, which is a complete change. It's God speaking. It's going to be Francis's poetic recounting of the God Speaks narrative. Okay, Avatar Meherabad Ki Jai. Okay, so that's